Welcome to Eye on the Illini. Mike Kegley here with Kedrick Prince. It is the post-game show after Illinois defeats Oakland 66-54 in a game that was hard to gather any rhythm. I think that's the way I would kind of classify this one, Ked. It went back and forth, up and down. I thought that it was hard for either team to get much pace going. But what did you think about this game as you were watching it?
It was just ugly. I mean, it wasn't entertaining. The only positive thing that I can say that's really positive is that you won. It was just it was sloppy, poor shooting. They looked like they weren't motivated. It just looked bad to me. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. Um, but it just, I don't know. I mean, and you can just tell, from some of the feedback from people who, are commenting on social media, well, it was ugly, but we got the win. And I guess that's the best way to look at it. But just uninspired. I'm still having some concerns about guys not being able to score, because that's what they were brought in to do. And you've seen it after 3 games. And I'm not saying I'm panicking because it's only 3 games, but I mean, it would be nice to see some of those shots fall and go in.
Yeah, I think this team is at where you would expect an Illini team to be. They're getting better. The difference is you've just got so many pieces that have to learn to play together that it's not your typical Illini team, and they're going to have to deal with how do we get all these pieces clicking. And I thought Kasparis was struggled a little bit. He's shooting today, only had 4 points. They were all from the free throw line. I thought 6 rebounds, 3 assists, but I thought he could have had quite a few more assists. He just had some what we used to call killed assists because there were a couple times guys mishandled what I thought were pretty good passes or just misfired on open shots. And you certainly can't blame the guy who passed him the ball for that.
No, you can't. I mean, it was just a poor shooting night. I get it. I understand it. It's happened before, Mike. But he is a guy that, from a shooting standpoint, I like to see some of those shots fall. I don't want to repeat myself over and over and say the same thing, but I want to see him. I want to see some of those shots fall. I want to see Kylan Boswell. I want to see some of those shots fall. I mean, I think between the both of them, they were what 2 for 8 or 9 or 11 or something like that. I think. Let me see here.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're 2 for 11.
yeah, I mean 2 for 11, and that can't happen. I mean, I get the rebounds and the defense was great, but if this team is going to be an outstanding scoring team, you're going to need that. And so again, like we talked about at halftime, you don't want to press on the issue, but now is the time. I mean, so there's no more excuses. You got to have guys walk up to the free throw line and make free throws. They've been a really, really good free throw shooting team. You know, I'm not complaining about 76% because, I mean, any team that shoots over 75%, I mean, it's a good free throw percentage. But as a team tonight, they shot 7 for 25 from three, which is 28%. Oakland's was horrific. They were 4 of 25 for 16%. But Brad mentioned after the game, these are the kind of games you want to win, and and while you're playing, because when you play in the Big Ten, you're going to face some teams that do that to you.
Yeah, I thought it was a kind of an ugly win. Again, Illinois would get a little bit of a buffer, and then to Oakland's credit, they would get it a little closer, and then Illinois would expand it, and so you was a little bit like watching somebody play the accordion, but that back and forth was not the most enticing. And I have to be honest with you, I think Jakusonis, he needs more than 3 shots. I mean, I think a couple things come to mind. First off, he did pass up some threes to go for the assist, and that's admirable. But I think a few of those, when you get the opportunity to step into the shot like he had, just stride into it and rocker step and see if you can make it. But the other part is that when he drives, he also needs to go to the basket. In other words, you don't just drive to dish. And I'd like to see him get a few more shots. And that may mean that you're taking the ball to the hoop and you're pressing that way. And certainly when he does go and get fouled, I mean, that guy's darn near automatic at the free throw line.
Yes, he is, and you're right. I want to see that too. Now that he can't shoot, he hasn't been great, from behind the arc. But and I understand he's trying to get everybody involved, and and what I see right now, I'm just speaking from a coach's standpoint. I think right now, looking at the substitutions and how much they played, they're really trying to get these kids some confidence. Because for me personally, I mean, I look at the numbers, and you have what Trey White's a starter. He only played 14 minutes. Javon Gibbs Lawhorn came in and gave him some great minutes. He scored 7 points and only played 12 minutes. But then the other guys like Ben got 36 minutes, Kylan got 35, and Will Riley got 28, and KJ got 31. I mean, I'm fine with that, but you also want to get some minutes to the other guys because you're going to need them. Because here's what could happen. KJ struggles handling the basketball against pressure, say against Alabama. Then you're really really going to need Trey White. You're really really going to need Javon Gibbs Lawhorn. That's why I think also having these guys out here in games like this is important.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch Trey White. He ended up with 7 points. He shot 3 for 5. He didn't shoot poorly. Had a couple rebounds, had 3 assists. But for a guy who shot 3 for 5, he didn't have the confidence or the swagger that you would expect of a guy who's his shot decent this year so far. And I'd like to see him not necessarily do anything different, just play with a little bit more confidence. So hopefully, he'll gain that. And I do think that this game coming up next Wednesday against our friends at Alabama is going to be a big test for this team because right now, as they stand, they don't like being pushed around and pressure gives them a little bit of a fit. I think they're going to have to run everything through Ivisic in the middle because he's really right now he's the only guy that can consistently get his shot outside of Will Riley. And Will didn't have a great second half, but I do think you've got to play him an awful lot of minutes because when it comes down to it, he doesn't seem to mind taking the big shots. And not that he's always taking the best shots, but he's going to need to start figuring some of that out because I think as the season goes, we're going to have more than just number 13 in the middle scoring points. So we're going to need to develop some consistency around him. And I think Will Riley is a big piece of that.
Well, Mike, you talked about pressure. Let's go back to the Ole Miss game. How bad did they look when they received pressure against Ole Miss? This was another night where you saw that. So you know what? You look from a scouting standpoint. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get in their face. I'm going to make it uncomfortable for them. And if you have a team like Alabama who can score, it could get really ugly quick. And that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to go on the road on a neutral side, but it's really on the road and embarrass yourself like that because you're right. A good team will take that away. Now, I will say this. I thought Ben Rickhouse had some really, really good looks. He really did. His shots didn't fall. I didn't mind it because you've seen him have some good games. I want to see the other guys have some good games. And I know they're working on it. So I'm not going to sit here and pretend that they're not because I know they are working on it. But now is the time. You have this schedule. What you can't do is lose all those games either. You don't want to do that.
Yeah, you've got some tough games on the schedule, and you cannot moral victories don't get you into the NCAA tournament.
No.
I mean that's just the way it is. And over on the women's side, that early victory over Florida State at number 19 is critical because it'll help them in their quest to put together that resume. Illinois is going to have Tennessee, they're going to have Alabama, they're going to have Missouri. So they're going to have some teams that will allow them to build that resume above and beyond what's going on in the Big Ten. I will tell you that I have not been as much of a fan of the Mike Woodson Indiana regime but they're physical. I don't know if they can shoot from outside, but they're physical. And that game worries me more now than it did 3 weeks ago.
Well, to be honest with you, I have not seen any team yet from the Big Ten yet. I'm definitely not impressed with Michigan State. I don't think they're a good shooting team. I just don't. And I think Indiana, like you said, they are physical, but I've not seen it, and I'm not really sold on Purdue yet either.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not,
agree.
and I know, I think a lot of the preseason hype was based off last year. And I'm not saying they're not good teams, but I don't think they're top 15 teams in the country because even when Illinois is playing their best, they can play with those teams. I've seen enough of that, you know. But you're right. You know, they're going to have plenty of opportunities to go on the road or on a neutral site to win. And the one thing, like I just said, you can't lose them all. You want to show that you belong for a number of reasons, for recruiting, for national rankings, for the postseason play, for confidence for the kids, the program, all of it, the whole 9 yards. So, but I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see, if they've made any strides, if they'll step their game up against pressure. It's going to be loud. I know Illinois travels well, but it's still going to be considered probably a road game. But they need that.
Yeah, they do. And just kind of reviewing that for folks, next Wednesday is their next game, so that's the 20th, and it's at 8 p.m. Central Time, and it'll be on the SEC network. So always want to tell people that because that's a little bit different than what Illinois usually plays on. Then they get a little bit of a break with Maryland East Shore and Little Rock, and then you go back on Turkey Day at 3 o'clock on CBS against Arkansas and Calipari, and then going on from there, you get a little bit of a couple games against Northwestern and Wisconsin to open Big Ten, and then you swing with Tennessee, and that's on December 14th, and then you play Missouri on December 22nd. And then Chicago State is kind of the end of your preseason, and then you jump into the Big Ten. So this Illinois team is going to have opportunities then with Alabama, Arkansas, and Tennessee and Missouri. So 4 big games. Obviously, Brad Underwood is planning on going 4 for 4, but this team right now, they need a little bit of work. And I got to say, though, Ivisic certainly looks like he is ready to go. I thought I liked everything except one thing, Ked, and I don't know if you noticed this, but when he he puts his base down and posts up, he has a tendency to crouch down to get the ball. He gets his shoulders and his head a little further than his knees, and if you notice, he kind of reaches and he isn't quite as good at grabbing that pass in there when he's got his balance. And if you ever you want to practice this at home, stand there with your head and your hands in front of your knees and imagine somebody pushing you from behind as you're trying to catch a basketball. I think he needs to be a little more straight up, and I think he needs to keep his I don't think he needs to get his shoulders and his head quite so forward, and I think he'd have better balance.
Well, there were a couple of passes tonight that I thought he probably could have got. Some of that I think it's his fault. Some of it, I think some of it is where he's receiving the ball, who he's receiving it from. Other than Casperas, I think he's probably the one guy on the team who can put the ball in position for him to score. Trey Wright tried to slip. There was a screen that Ibises tried to slip, and the ball was behind him. So I don't think some of the guys are able to put the ball where he can score. And you got to remember, he's 7'1", and trying to bend down. As mobile as we see that he is, him having to bend down to get the ball is different. And a lot of coaches don't know if they do it as much today because the players they're different. But back in the day, you never threw the ball to a big guy at their feet or below their knees. If he did, you ran for it. So, but with him being mobile, it may be a little different. Now, I want to just make another comment real quick. You talked about the schedule. This is neat. I'm going to tell you, I've seen Alabama and Arkansas play. Now, Alabama's ranked second in the country, but my opinion, I think Arkansas is the best team Illinois is going to play. Arkansas scares me. I think they are better than Alabama, and I certainly don't think
What
Kansas.
scares you about what scares you when you take a look at the Arkansas team?
Mike, they guard and they make life hell. They really, really get up. And when you turn the ball over, their guards are so quick and they can get out on the floor and they make it tough for you to get shots, kind of the way Duke did. I think the one advantage that we have, if there's any advantage, is the Bisic going against his brother. I think we got the better brother.
Okay.
Is what I really think. I just watched the way when they played Kansas, and I don't care if Hunter Dickinson wasn't playing, they dismantled Kansas. And I don't think Kansas is number one in the country. I don't. I still, even though Duke lost, I was impressed with them last night. Kentucky beat them. But the way Arkansas played, Mike, for the fans, if you get a chance to see them or you can go back and watch a game, you'll see what I'm talking about. Alabama's just talented. They don't make it uncomfortable for you to score. And that's what Illinois struggles with. We just talked about Ole Miss and we talked about Oakland tonight. That is the game that I really think that could cause them a lot of problems.
Well, and one of the things that's a challenge, I don't think people really understand how good the coaching is in the Big Ten. Yeah, we talk about Greg Gard or this guy or that guy, but now that the dead weight's out of the conference with Juwan Howard, you've got you've got a lot of coaches that are really really good, and kind of what really scares me is a situation where, let's say, an Arkansas jumps in your jock and causes you some problems. These Big Ten coaches they're all gonna try to do that, and they're gonna try to emulate that, and I think that could be a real challenge for the team. So you want them to be prepared to deal with that, and I just think part of this is I think this team's going to be a little different. Last year, as fans, we could depend on Terrence Shannon Jr. unless some crazy legal issue got in his way. But we could depend on him. You knew he was good for
20
I don't know 18 points every night, as a minimum, and that's a bad night, so to speak. And you knew you had that. I think this year it's going to be Ivisic who's going to be the guy that we can get probably 18 out of. I do think the revolving cast of people, I think it's going to be different who's there every night. But I do think if you get Kasparis to get comfortable where he's getting 14 a game, 12 a game, something along those lines. Now all of a sudden you're cooking because you got that 32 points that you kind of need to get the engine running, and then it can be whoever is hot. I'm starting to feel like Riley is going to be one who's got that opportunity. But tonight, when the team shoots 41.8% against Oakland, that does give you a little bit of pause because Oakland doesn't have the athletes at any position that you will see with Alabama, regardless of if Alabama is number 20 instead of, number 2.
Oh, for sure, Mike, without a doubt. And, when we talk about athletes, and how about this? We've not talked about Tennessee yet,
Yeah.
and that's another team that I really, really think that could pose some problems or cause some issues, for them. I think, to be objective and to take the orange Kool-Aid glasses off, I'm going to tell you, in order for Illinois to beat them, the way I see it, from what I've seen the teams, all the teams play, they're going to have to shoot the basketball. They can't go out there and have turnovers, unforced turnovers. You can't go 7 for 25 from 3. What did they turn the ball over? 18 turnovers in the first 2 games. They had 9. You have to take care of the ball. But then how are you going to respond when you get hit, in the chest, because they're going to make it tough for you. They're not just going to stand there and just roll over. And they're playing Illinois. They knew what they were last year. No, Illinois is not ranked, but they know that they're going to be playing a good team. And I'm going to tell you, like, even though we talked about what makes Illinois uncomfortable, Illinois should do the same thing. When I watched Alabama play the other night, I'm not saying they're not, and I don't base it off one game. I mean, I've seen enough, but I just, there's opportunities there. Take advantage of them. But now it's time. I mean, I know I don't. The coaches are telling them that. They don't need us. People in the media or fans or what have you tell them what they need to do because they watch the games. I mean, they know what's at stake.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Anybody else that caught your eye? I thought Draven Gibbs Lawhorn played good. 12 minutes, 7 points, 3 rebounds, which I thought was good. Now a little high in the turnovers tonight, but I was kind of surprised he didn't get a few more minutes. And while Morez is still looking a little bit robotic on the offensive end in terms of when he gets the ball, I don't think it's going to get better by not playing him. And the other thing is his rebounding. Even in 8 minutes, he had 3 rebounds. I do think he adds something, even if he's not as good on the court. But tonight, I'm not certain if you take Ivisic out of the game with his point production, maybe this would be closer than what we would like to see.
And I mentioned before at halftime, I would like to see them play together. I don't see any harm in that. I mean, I don't know. A lot of coaches don't like to do it. Some will. I wouldn't have a problem seeing them to gel on the court. Back to Davon Gibbs Lawhorn. It's tough because he brought a lot of energy. When he knocked down a big three, he gets to the rim. He's a good free throw shooter. And I'll tell you, he's a really good on the ball defender as well. I wish he could have got more minutes. I thought in the second half when they, became complacent, I thought Coach Underwood was going to go to him because, he gets going on one of those heaters. He can change a game by himself, which we've seen him do a couple times. He's one guy I want to see gets more minutes, Mike, and you're right about Morez Johnson. Morez just looks uncomfortable out there right now from an offensive standpoint, but you can't get that fluidness. You can't feel comfortable, when you only play 10 minutes a game. But I know right now they're starting to, put their rotations together and who they feel comfortable with. In fairness to the coaches, we're not there every day. They see things that we don't see.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I do like Morez's spark on the defensive end. And I'm always going to have the bias to defense, being that I had no talent and I wasn't very quick, so I had to play defense. But I do think he brings a lot to the table from the defensive side of the ball. Any other thoughts on this before we kind of take this one and kind of get off the air, and we'll come back on in a few minutes when Brad gets on.
Do you remember the Illinois Purdue football game when Illinois barely won and people were freaking out? You know what? That's one of the 6 wins. This is the way I see this Oakland game tonight. It's ugly. They're 3-0, and it's a win because in a month nobody's going to care about it. It's just going to be one of those wins that's on your resume. I would have liked to see a better performance, heading into Alabama, but that didn't happen. So now we'll see. They'll roll the ball out, and we'll see what happens. But and it's one game. There's no reason to panic. It's one game, and a lot of teams, every team doesn't play well every night, and it could have been worse if Oakland would have made some threes. This could have been an L tonight.
Yeah, it could have been. And then on the other hand, the other thing that I think people tend to forget about is, Illinois was part of the reason why they had a hard time shooting the 3-point shot, because Illinois was running them off the line, playing defense that kind of made them not shoot very effectively from there. And ironically, they only made 4 for 25, and Illinois made 7 for 25, and not a markedly different, but it does, when you get down to the end of the game, those 9 points can be really, really important. And I think that Illini defense was really critical in this. So we will talk to people in a few minutes when we get Brad Sturdy on. Until then, have a safe drive, or of course, if you're listening to this later on, Brad will be right here after the break. Thank you.